It's been 4 years almost to the day since our world shut down thanks to COVID-19. And I remember when we started in that shutdown place, that there was a cartoon that circulated, and it showed these children playing at the table with their parents, playing a board game, and loving every minute of this precious time that they had that they didn't have before in the before times, when life was so busy and parents were on the go and the kids were on the go. And in so many ways, the pandemic was the worst of times. And in so many ways, for many, it was the best of times. Thank you, Charles Dickens. At the same time, of course, the parents were worried, but they were also relieved and joyful and valued this wonderful time with their kids. And it was in that quiet time that was so powerfully enforced upon us that we discovered how overscheduled we were, how busy we were, and there was an opportunity to take a break and a breath. And for some, it was the first time that they could identify themselves as human beings rather than human doings. And I wondered at that time, knowing that we would eventually come out of it, whether we would learn anything and carry anything enduring with us. And perhaps not surprisingly, we found that as soon as things opened, it didn't take very long before we were back at our schedules and our work, and kind of missing that space that was forced upon us thanks to COVID. What I've noticed, though, especially in the last 6 months or so, is that there's a growing awareness among people that they don't want to do as much as they did. They don't want to feel as stressed as they felt. And yet, it's pushing up against, get on it. We're in a society where we are expected to produce. And so there's this push and pull between I want to be and I want to do. And so for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to talk about this and explore it a little. And the reason it's going to be 2 weeks is because it could be a lifetime, but I'm going to spare you. I'm going to do it in 2 weeks because the first week will be on the idea of being while we're doing. The idea of being present to whatever we are doing, knowing that we're humans and we got to do things. It's just what we have to do. So is there a way in the busyness that we can find a place of rest? And then next week, I'm going to talk about and invite us to consider the idea of more rest time and carving out deliberate rest time. So this is in many ways one of my life's works for my own personal life, as my husband will attest. He'll look at me and go, do you ever stop? And the answer is no, because I love it. And I think there's part of the key. So let's talk a little bit now about the idea of doing and being and having them coexist. And the way I'm going to approach this is to share with you a little story about two sisters. Charles Dickens again, A Tale of Two Sisters this time. We have two women, Mary and Martha, sisters, friends of Jesus, and they're all out having a day together, teaching, being in community with each other, and they're having such a good time that they decide that they're going to come back to the house. Ever happened to anyone here? Let's come back to the house. We're all having such a great time. So they come back to the house, and Jesus sits in the living room, and all the people sit around him, and Mary sits at his feet, wanting to hear what he has to say. And Martha is in the kitchen, doing the food, making sure there's toilet paper. Not that they had that in that day, but you know what I mean? She's the one who's busy doing. And she gets upset. And she goes, not to her sister, but to Jesus. And she says to Jesus, "Can you do something about this?" And this is what Jesus says. If I can find my notes, that would be. He says to her, this is found in Luke chapter 10. He says to her, after Mary says, Martha says, "Tell her to help me." Jesus says, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed. Indeed, only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." Okay, so I've been the Martha. I see nods around the room. And when I first read this, and for many years after reading this, I was like, no, I think Jesus got this wrong, man. I mean, man, if it weren't for Martha feeding the people, who'd have fed them? There's stuff that needs to be done. Otherwise, they'd be hungry. So what was Jesus really meaning when he said Mary had the right idea? Dig deeper, Rona. I think it's to do with the energy that Martha brought. Think about it for just one moment. If Mary was seated because she made a deliberate decision to willingly sit and be open and listen, and Martha made a deliberate decision to willingly feed the people so that everyone else could relax and enjoy listening to Jesus, then we wouldn't even have this story. The story happened because Martha was feeling overwhelmed, and she felt that she was doing too much while others were doing too little. And there's some clues in this for me in terms of what this message might be for us. The first is that we want to be cheerful in whatever we choose to do. In Thessalonians, my tablet is doing goofy things, so if I'm distracted, that is why. Sorry. In Thessalonians, we see the words there. Everyone must give as he has decided, he or her has decided in his or her heart. Everyone must give as he has decided in their heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion. for God loves a cheerful giver. What was Mary giving? She was giving the gift of service. She was giving the gift of doing. But if she was doing it from an energy of reluctance and compulsion and a feeling of duty and obligation, then sure, the food would get on the table, but the energy in the room would be affected by that. So the first thing I want to encourage you to consider is whatever you're doing, do it willingly. Chances are you're doing it anyway. So why not shift the energy and do it from a place of happiness, a place of being willing? The antidote to overwork is not always rest. It is doing something, giving something, serving in a way that is wholehearted. Why? Because then it doesn't feel like work. And that brings me to my second idea. The first is, whatever you're doing, do it cheerfully. The second is, name it play. I was on a call a few weeks ago, and one of the people on this, it was a Zoom call, one of the people on the Zoom call put their little nephew up because she was babysitting that nephew that day. And somebody said, "What are you going to do today?" And the child said, "Play." And I remember, as a kid, we used to play housey housey. Everything seemed to be 2 words. Did you ever do that? Teacher, teacher, doctor, doctor. Maybe it was just a South African thing, I don't know. But we used to play housey housey, and we would play as, as if we're mom and as if we're the person taking care of the baby. And it was all play. And then we grow up, and then we're the doctor, doctor, or the nursey, nursey, or the cashier with the cash register, and we're miserable. Why? Make it play. And be cheerful. Be happy. Have you ever heard a kid got in trouble at school because they asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up, and he said, happy. Be is an attitude. Jesus reminded us of this when he said that the children should come to him, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Children are all in whatever they are doing. They're all in when they are best. They are all in when they are blessed. They're all in, wholehearted. They get the feeling and they get it over with, and then they go back and they play. What if, instead of using the word work, which sounds like a horrible 4-letter word, we change it to the word play? Then all of a sudden, you know that saying that we used to have, plan your work and work your plan? What if it was plan your play and play your plan? How much more fun would it be to do the stuff that you have to do anyway, because you've got to eat, you've got to put a roof on your head, you've got to put clothing on, hopefully, and you've got obligations. We've got obligations. Come to them joyfully. Be grateful. And then finally, be present. Be there with whatever it is. We didn't get to see the eclipse this year live, but in 2017, Walt and I were in Madras, Oregon, watching the eclipse at that time. And It took us days to get there, days to set up camp in this massive tent city of like some farmer had cleared away their field, and then they had created, I don't know, maybe 10 by 10 plots. So it was literally tent, 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 and then a tent behind, and then another row, and then where cars could drive, and then the same thing. And it was as far as the eye could see. And it was magnificent. It took ages to get there, took ages to set up and prepare. We were there for 2 days waiting for this event, along with thousands of other people.
In the path of totality.
In the path of totality. And it was spectacular. It was everything that they say it is. It still makes me all verklempt. And what was so interesting is as soon as the eclipse started to finish, so it starts, then you get a totality, then it takes another hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it might be, before finally the moon has passed out of blocking part of the sun. That second half of the eclipse, you would not believe the number of people who were in their cars and booting it back home, trying to get out. And we may have seen this as well, if you've ever gone to like a Canucks game or a concert or something, that there will be people who will miss the last bit of the game because they want to get the heck out and beat the traffic. Even though they've planned all day and they've dressed up and they've gone for dinner or gone for drinks, or like all of it's front end loaded, but they don't even finish the experience before they need to move. They're missing out. And yet we do it all the time, big and small. What if, instead of thinking about the next step, and trust me, I am talking to me, what if instead of thinking about what I could be doing because I'm here with you, what if I am here with you, let me be here with you? What kind of gift is that presence? The present of your presence. And it's when we do that, when we are fully engaged, with eye contact, with phone put away, with listening to a person, that we actually, it's almost as if time expands. Because when we're there, we are doing, yes, listening and so on, but we are also being. And when the two are connected, then no additional rest is needed, because it is so heartwarming that it fills you and renews you naturally. So, be mindful. If you find yourself drifting, be there. If you find yourself drifting and you're like, I got these things to do, bring yourself back. It's like the puppy going off and then you're kind of training it back to the paper. Bring yourself back. Take time to put down the phone and notice the sky, the smells, the scenery around you, the taste of the air, the beauty of the person in front of you. And yes, there may be times when we are doing too much. When we've, as my dad would say, burned the candle at both ends. And we'll talk about that a little next week. But notice, if you're going to complain, then maybe it's worth looking and considering dialing back. But if not, whatever you're doing, actually even if, until you dial it back, if you're doing something, do it cheerfully. God loves a cheerful doer. Name it play. Lighten up. Be there completely. This way, you come with the energy of Mary, calm, open. That's first. Then the doing happens under that umbrella. That's Martha. They both work together. But sitting at the feet of wisdom is the most important. It's what matters. Human doing and human being, what are you? Yes, you are both. I bless you.